Thank you so much for joining us here today, everyone, for Innovators Pioneers, where we showcase innovative thinkers and leaders across the globe from a variety of professions. I am Dominique Wilson, your host. Allow me the pleasure of introducing Miss Jill Smart. Miss Smart worked at Accenture for over 33 years, where she was their Chief Human Resources Officer for the last 10 of those years with Accenture. Jill retired from Accenture and is currently the president of the National Academy of Human Resources. She's also the director of EPAM Systems, a director of World Fuel Services, a director of AlixPartners, a director of HireRight, and a member of Cerity Partners Advisory Board. She is also on several boards from the University of Illinois and the Goodman Theater in Chicago. Jill, I've had the pleasure of meeting you in 2015, where we both served on the board of trustees for them, where I know that you still are. And each moment that I've reached out to you, you've always extended your hand of support and with grace. And so I thank you for joining us here with Innovative Pioneers. We are curious, what drives your passion for success? Tell us.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me today. It is absolutely my pleasure. And I agree that I was very lucky to meet you in 2015. We both have a passion for our university, but it's been really a very special thing in my life to get to know someone like you. So you have a special place in my heart. And you have the passion for success in many different ways at a much younger age than I did. So I'll tell you, so I do have, I have a lot of energy. So that's one thing, okay? And I feel I have both physical energy and kind of mental energy, where if there's something that I'm interested in or want to do or want to help, I am very passionate about it. And I have a lot of tenacity around it. But I will tell you that it really wasn't a passion for success, right? Like not career success. I have a passion for learning. I have a passion for collaborating. I love building relationships with people. I've done all kinds of personality tests, and every time one comes out, I'm a connector. I connect people, and I didn't even realize it. It just happens. And so I have a passion for life. I know that sounds so, big and philosophical, but, it's like I'm passionate about my university. I'm passionate about my family. I was passionate and still am passionate about Accenture, and I'm passionate about what I'm doing now. So a lot of it just comes from within. But I will also say that, I grew up in a family where, we didn't have a lot. And I saw my parents work really hard to make sure that we had food to eat and we had a nice home and we could go to college. And I inherited their work ethic. But I would also say, particularly from my mother, who so enjoyed what she did, whether it was at work or outside of work. And I saw how happy that made her. And I think I got it from her. So I have to give her a lot of the credit for it. And my dad, I got his really hard work ethic from.
That's beautiful. And I love those sentiments that you shared. And the fact that you recognize it is not so much where you saw it for success, but rather for life opportunity and really attaining it, but also appreciating your growth and where you came from.
Yeah.
That's very humbling. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe who was the person that influenced your life the most? And what were the key lessons that they taught you?
Yeah. Well, I know you said who is the key person, but I really would have to say two people. And those are my parents. And I know it sounds, kind of that many people might say that, but I actually don't think a lot of people can say that, at least not to the degree that I can. My sister and I were first generation to go to college. So our parents worked very hard to make sure that that would happen. My father grew up in the city of Chicago. His family was from Italy. He was the youngest of a big lot. And he worked his way up from working in a plant at a check printing company to managing the entire plant. So the thing he gave me, or of many things, was his work ethic. And he was very tenacious and didn't give up and really wanted to continue to grow and get better. for himself and for our family. And that's probably of the many things he gave me, that's probably the one that I really value the most, along with him teaching me how to balance a checkbook when I was probably 9. And then my mother also, she was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and then she went to work as a waitress, and then she was a hostess, and then she eventually bought a restaurant with a partner, and then she eventually bought her own restaurant and ran it. And so she too had that obvious work ethic. And so that was really instilled in both of us. I think the other thing that both of them gave me was passion for our family. And really, maybe family can't always be first, but it certainly has to be close to being first, most of the time. That doesn't mean that you can't also have a career, because I think too many people think that you might have to choose. But there's something special about what my mother gave me, and she gives to many people. But to me, I really felt, my sister and I both, she gave me unconditional love. I had a mother who never set expectations for me that I couldn't meet. She let me set my own expectations. I never felt like I was being judged by her. I never felt, she never criticized me. Sure, she gave me feedback, but she never criticized me. And as I grew, I didn't really realize how great of a thing that was until I was, I think, an adult. And it really had an impact on me, I think, in how I try to treat people and interact with people. And if I am judging them, I try not to. I try to keep it inside myself, and I try and be more like her. I think I've gotten better with that over my life. I'm certainly not perfect as she was. And so that being non-judgmental and accepting everyone, and in many ways that's helped me in my career, because I felt like I could relate to people that, never went to college, and people that have PhDs, and people that are rich, and people that are poor, because of that. And so I felt like that really also helped me in my career and help others. And that's something that I really try and live up to. I think the other thing she gave me was her passion for life. She liked to, if you talk about a work hard, play hard, she was the definition of it. I probably don't play as hard as much as she did, and I probably could always have learned to do a little bit more of that, especially in college and beyond. But she gave me the insight to know, to do both. And so she left a place in my heart, a place in my brain, and a place in many people's lives that she probably doesn't even know she touched.
That's incredible. I think it's so important for each of us to reflect on who has impacted our lives and how, and also how those lessons are within our pillars,
Yeah.
within our values. And what you spoke of is, one, she supported you no matter what the situation was, and but did it in a way that was elegant, that was comforting, and but then she showed you the way to even go further, that your story is not defined by now,
Right.
but it's so much more that you can achieve. And so I love that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And on that note of work, like, and I'm sure our viewers are very curious, like, how did you get into the human resources profession?
Yeah. Well, so I grew up in Accenture. When I started there, it was called Arthur Andersen, but I was always part of the consulting practice. And our division then became Andersen Consulting. Arthur Andersen and Andersen Consulting divorced, right? Became two separate companies. And then we became Accenture. And so I grew up actually in our consulting practice. So for the first 21 years of my career, I was in technology consulting, and I worked in a variety of industries, and finance, banking, healthcare, insurance, implementing large either system packages, or custom systems, training people how to use them, redefining business processes. So very, very big, long transformations, I would say. And then one day our CEO called me and asked me if I would be our chief learning officer and do for Accenture, Andersen Consulting at the time, what I do for clients, but in terms of learning and development. So we were starting to get into many different kinds of work than we normally had. We normally were very traditional, technology and strategic consulting. We were getting into outsourcing and all kinds of other things. And so we really needed to change the way we were training people. And we, at the time, there was no online training. We were doing everything, in our training center, actually here in Chicago. And I really didn't want to do it. And because I loved what I was doing. And one of my mentors, who was actually was running the financial services division that I was in, suggested that I say yes. He said, you don't want to say no, because they had asked me to take a couple other internal jobs, and I said no. He's like, do this one. It's going to be good. You're going to learn a lot. And so I did, but I asked it a few things. I said, I need to know it's a round trip ticket, that as long as I don't mess things up, I can go back to consulting, that I get to bring a few people with me to help me, and that it was considered billable client work. And so the CEO said yes to all those things. And it really was one of the best experiences I've had. It was completely out of my comfort zone. You know, training and development was not my area. I was fine building all the systems once we knew what we wanted to do, because we couldn't go buy online training then. We had to build it all. But it was very strategic. And we actually ended up writing a book about it. And so I really liked it. And then we were having a CEO switch, and I was going to go back to consulting. And the new CEO literally in our training center tapped me on the shoulder and said, would you be the CHRO? So it was not in my career plan at all. But I'll tell you, it was the best, job that anybody could ever have. And in fact, when I retired, I gave my CEO about a year and a half notice that, I was going to retire. And he did ask me, like, are there any other roles, that you'd want here? And I was like, this is the best role in this company. We're hiring, at the time, we were hiring 60,000 people a year. We had hundreds of thousands of employees. We were responsible for staffing each and one of them every day, at their clients. I'm like, nope, I'm going out on a high, like Michael Jordan. So I'm happy, and I'm going to go do something else.
I love it. That's beautiful. And you spoke to something that intrigued me on one. There was a couple elements. One, that someone that was your mentor, you sought out a mentor, and you built that relationship to the point where, and you did such a great job that they actually were referring you to different opportunities. Like, what was different about that opportunity than the others? And more so on the lens of, when you evaluate a situation, when you're choosing something, how do you go about that to ensure that it's that right choice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really, really good question. So this one was, I think it was different because the other roles that I had been offered were similar to what I was doing for a client, but doing it for Accenture. This one was in an area, training and development, that I hadn't really worked in before. And so it was new. And that was part of why I wanted to say no. And then part of why I didn't fight it, because I am adverse to change, which is not a good thing. Right. I mean, I was probably one of the last people at Accenture that had a BlackBerry before I went to an iPhone. And then, of course, once I changed and learned it, I loved it. So for me to get out of my comfort zone, it has always been a hard thing. And so I wish that I was better at it. And I think people who get out of their comfort zones really reap the benefits of it. So that was part of the reason why I said, okay. And the other part really was, my mentor said, Jill, you can't keep saying no to the CEO. Like, that's not okay. So there you go. Yeah. And then, when I'm evaluating things, I mean, I really look at, do I think I can be successful? Right? Do I have the skills needed to do it, or not just the skills? Because a lot of times you go into something that you don't have the skills for. By that time in my career, I had enough experiences with clients where I really felt underqualified, like really underqualified, and everything turned out great. So it took me a long time to know that I don't have to have all the answers, and all the skills right up front. And I learned a really good lesson early in my career when I didn't ask for help soon enough, and it impacted me. And so I am very happy asking for help early and often.
That's incredible. And I agree with you. Like, closed mouths don't get fed, and it's important to speak up, but also seek help, but also be in an environment where you can feel nurtured,
right?
Support towards it. Now, you kind of spoke to it a little bit in terms of getting out of your comfort zone. And I'm, as a HR professional, myriad experiences, like, what do you think? Because I'm gonna ask a very uncomfortable question, because I know that sometimes it can be hard for companies to address these circumstances. But what steps do you think companies should take to improve gender and minority equality and representation?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time talking about this particular topic, and there's all kinds of things you can do. You can recruit from different places, you can train people, you can, give mentors. So there's a lot of really good things. But in my view, the most important thing is the developmental opportunities that people get along the way. Right. So you can train someone to be more open-minded or to understand a bias that they might not know that they have. But we have to get women and people of color qualified for these jobs. Right. And so we in companies, we have to pay attention to what assignments are they getting? Are we challenging them enough? And are we supporting them so that if they think they're not up for the challenge, but you as someone that's worked with them knows they are up for the challenge with some help, we have to proactively develop them. And of all the things that we can do, that's the top thing. Once you have, the people in the company. The other thing is that within the HR realm, we're realizing that we may be taking the easy way, say, for example, in terms of where we recruit. Right? We want to go to the top schools, and we only want to go to a few schools because it's cheaper, right? Because you don't have to go recruit at 29 schools instead of 3. But that means you're missing out on a lot of other potential employees who could be just as successful as the ones from those top schools. And so a lot of HR folks are starting to do that and expand to schools they weren't aware of, or HBCUs. I mean, there's all kinds of things, places you can do. So I would say broaden the pool of where you're looking for people to hire, not just schools, but other companies. I'm at, if I work for one accounting firm, I might just want to go look for people from another big accounting firm. Well, you know what? There might be some really small boutique accounting firms, or there might be people that are in accounting in a company that aren't, it's not an accounting company. So there's all kinds. So broaden the pool and develop them along the way. Those are the two most important things. And I will tell you, before you can even get to those, if the leadership of the organization is not committed to making it happen, it won't, period.
You speak to a lot of truth there. And I love your sentiments on making sure that the team themselves provide resources to ensure that person is successful. Because at the end of the day, I'm a big believer that we are the strongest as other people around us. And if we don't make the other people around us stronger when we recognize their respective weaknesses, or at least where those challenges may be, or where someone can be lifted up, then that person won't grow as much, and they won't be as successful in the goals of the company, or at least the goals of the department won't be as easy as achievable.
Yeah.
And I agree. The lens of the team or the leadership, they must be bought in.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for our country and our world to recognize that they need to step up and take that respective action, and be honest with oneself, and see how aligned synergies can be there.
Yeah.
So that's appreciated. Right. And I'm curious, because I know that with the world's changing, all that's happening, like COVID has been a huge factor in the workforce. How you think it has affected HR professionals in their approach to hiring?
Well, I would actually kind of broaden the question, around the HR professionals. I mean, the function of HR it's not that they needed to step up, but they stepped up even more during this and really played a vital role in terms of two things: taking care of their people, but also taking care of the business, right? So very concerned about first it was the physical wellness, then it became the mental wellness of their employees, and finding ways then to make them productive for the company, right? And it's not just so the company can make money during a pandemic, right? You want to keep as many people as employed as you can. You want to keep them so they're not just, isolated. And so I think that the hybrid method of working is probably here forever, in my view. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of total remote, by the way, because I think you lose many dimensions of building your skills and your relationships when you're not physically with people. But in terms of hiring, yeah, it was really, so many people were hired when they had never even met anyone from the company in person. And then they got them productive, as well. So it really goes to show what technology can do. And I think a lot of people who were hesitant to think that people who worked from home were just as productive as those in the office, not just in terms of recruiting, but in terms of, everything. And I think they were proven wrong, right? Now, clearly there are some jobs that cannot be done remotely. I mean, I'm just talking about the ones where, you really, really can. And so I think that, the recruiting was, just using the technology as if the person was sitting in the chair across from you. And so many people are using more things like LinkedIn and, other services. And so I think the recruiting, what became the biggest challenge was the recruiting of very senior people. Right. So C-suite level and, managing directors and partners. I mean, because that is usually a long process, and it's usually the biggest factor you want to make sure is going to work is that there's a cultural fit. And so, and I've actually worked with a couple of CHROs who've hired CFOs and others. And it was a really long process and some really open, honest dialogue, and a lot probably more due diligence than we would have, and trying to talk to folks that have worked with them if you can, if it's not confidential. So, and I think some of those things will stay.
Yeah, that's appreciative on those elements, and it's definitely a different dynamic on how folks have approached hiring, but also there's been a lot of adaptation there, and we ourselves in our world recognize that technology can allow that, and but also we can really develop better policies so that we can ensure that there's still efficiencies, and also we pick the right person that's coming in as well. So that's appreciative. Now I know we're coming up on time, but the as we kind of close this out, like, as someone that moves with a lot of intentionality and purpose, what is the legacy you want to leave behind for your family and the community you are impacting?
I thought about that, and I would answer first for what I wanted to leave behind in my career.
Yes.
Not that my career came before my family, but it was really important to me in the more senior parts of my career that I did the right thing. Right. And so in my role, sometimes the right thing is the really hard thing. I mean, I think that's true in life, right? But particularly in human resources. And so I made decisions based on, when this is all done and I'm standing looking in the mirror, can I look myself in the eye and say, I did the right thing? Now, sometimes the right thing may have not been the right decision, or, and like I said, sometimes it was hard, but I really feel proud that I did do the right thing. And actually someone that I worked with that was, I would say, a little bit difficult to work with, told me that when I first got the job as the CHRO, this person said, I'm really glad they chose you because I know you'll do the right thing, which just made me feel like so good. Awesome. So incredibly good. I would say for my family, it's really, since the thing I remember the most about my mother, right, is that she loved me unconditionally. And that's really important because I don't want my kids to think they have to impress me. And it's hard. It's even harder in our situation because I have been fortunate enough to have a very successful career. And I don't ever want them to think that they have to stand up, to what I did. So I try and make that very clear. I have very good relationship with my kids. And that's, that unconditional love. And, and always being there for my kids, my husband, and everybody else. And I feel, and sometimes I have not been there for my friends just because I've been, I made a career choice and then a family choice. Yes. And so I haven't, I think, been able to proactively spend time helping them in their situations. And I'm trying to make up for that. So
That's fair. And I think that's very honorable of you and very vulnerable of you to speak to those elements, and but also your intentionality about what you want for your life and the family and the things that you're involved in. So we appreciate you for that.
you asked me about the community,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually said something about kind of my intention around the community. And that is when you said, every time you've asked for help, I've helped you. And that's really important to me. And I will tell you, there are some times when, my husband's boss's sister will ask me for help with a resume, or, like people I don't know. I mean, there are times it's like, oh my God, I don't have time to do this, but I never say no. I mean, because I want people to know that I think when I die, there'll be a lot of people in the world that will say, oh, she helped me. And even if it's with the smallest of things, and that makes me feel really good, really good.
I love that. And I feel that, and I felt that since I met you. And you mentioned that you are high energy. I've seen that too. And I love it. Um, and your work is so important, and already you have impacted so much in so many lives. I'm certain only more great things are ahead for you as you move forward. Um, are there any initiatives or anything you want to highlight, or closing remarks you want to share with our audience here today?
I would say, you don't get what you don't ask for. So that's the help thing, right? Especially for people that are much earlier on in their careers.
Yes.
And don't feel like you have to make a black or white choice, right? Like I remember when I was actually up for partner and I was pregnant. And at the time, they made you sign something saying like you're giving your life to this company. You'll go anywhere at any time, blah, blah, blah. And I remember going to sign it. And I said to my husband, I'm like, there is no way I can do this. Like, how on earth do I think I can be a partner and a good mother? And there weren't very many role models of good mothers then, because there were very few women partners. Many of them were either single, no children, stay-at-home husband. It's very different now. So there weren't a lot of people I could go and say, like, how did you do this? Right. And my husband actually gave me a really good line. He was like, snap out of it. He said, you're throwing the towel in the ring without even getting in the ring. When you throw the towel in to say, I give up. Yeah. He's like, you're not even in the ring. Like, if the worst thing happens is you have to go find another job because it's not working, go find another job. So don't feel like you have to, I can either do this or this without trying it. That would be it. My one little piece of advice.
Now that's appreciative, and I absorb it, and I'm certain many others will as well. Again, thank you so
You're
much,
so welcome.
and continue to be an innovative pioneer and a leader in your field. And to all the viewers, we appreciate you for tuning in. We hope each of you have gained something from our conversation with Jill today. Feel free to share, comment, like, and or subscribe. Again, I am your host, Dominique Wilson. And remember, never stop pursuing your dreams. Action gets you closer than you were yesterday. Until next time.